Hi, and welcome to our new session of Design Fundamentals as part of our Unit 2, in which we are going to explore various skills and understandings that you need to form your basis for design. Today, what we are going to look at is the understanding of basic shapes and objects. Firstly, how do you draw an object? What does it take for you to draw a basic object? Do you find it difficult? Easy? Many of us shy away from drawing because we feel that we're somehow not capable of drawing all of these complicated things. But I'm here to tell you that couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is, most basic objects can be drawn very easily. There's a very simple way in which they all can be represented. All you have to do is break them down into components that are easier to draw. Remember the building blocks that we tried in our previous session? Building blocks of most of the objects come from shapes of basic geometry. You have a circle, you have a rectangle, triangle, pentagon, parallelogram, lines, points, curves. All of these are completely basic. Most of the things in the world can be broken down into their constituent shapes. Let's take an example of this. For example, here you've seen a semicircle, you've seen a rectangle, a parallelogram, and a set of lines, where what they're doing is by virtue of combining them into different forms, completely different visuals are being created. When you combine shapes, you can create objects. Now, all you need to do is try and put them together in a manner that is actually recognizable. So, how do you look at objects and how do you look at their representation? Firstly, take any object that you know and hold it up and look at it from the most characteristic side. For example, look at this cup and saucer. If you look at it from the top, you may not completely understand it, but if you look at it from the side, you will see that a profile is visible to you. The profile of the cup, the handle, and the saucer are very clear. Now, let's break this profile down. Take this profile and break it into shapes. For instance, you can identify a semicircle, a quadrant, rectangles, and parallelograms. And that's all it takes to put a cup together. Do you see the resemblance? Now, the same goes for many other objects. All you have to do is see them flat from one side and break them down. A train's engine might look difficult to draw, but if you break it down, you realize that it's actually just a series of rectangles, circles, and rounded rectangles, and a couple of lines on top of that. Now, once you've broken them down, you can identify them and draw them. You will be able to get a close approximation to the object, but most importantly, when you draw it flat after breaking it down, you will be able to get a recognizable version of the object. So let's give it a shot. Try and take any recognizable object and break it down into shapes. What can you find in this leaf and in the house that you saw previously? Let's try this car. What shapes do you think we can identify in this car? It's not too difficult. We begin with a simple trapezium or a parallelogram. We also add a couple of rounded rectangles, circles, and triangles whose edges have been rounded again. Let's try that again. We have rectangles, we have trapeziums or parallelograms, we have triangles whose edges have been rounded, and circles. Can you see them? Now you can try it yourself. Look around you. Pick any object that's in front of you. Hold it up to its most characteristic shape or side. And now break it down into shapes to draw it in 3D, in 2D. But this is all fine and flat. What if you wanted to take things to the third dimension? What if you wanted to draw something that was actually 3D? Is it going to be so difficult? Not at all. Now, what you need to do is simply change your building blocks. Your building blocks become 3D, and those can become combined to form objects that you want to draw. It's very simple. From a square, you have a cube or a cuboid. From a circle, you have cylinders and spheres. From a triangle, you have pyramids and prisms and cones. Like that, every basic shape also has its 3D form. Now, whenever you look at an object, think about what forms it can be broken into. So, the same principle works. Let's take this rough drawing of a car, for example. Now, if you notice the gray lines, what I've tried to do is I've tried to break it into pieces where there is a cube in the center, there are two cuboids on either side, and then there are a couple of cylinders. Now, what I've done is this cuboid has gotten cut to make way for the windshield of the car. A prism has been added at the back to make way for the back boot of the car. A couple of cylinders have been flattened to make your wheels. This way, a car can be depicted just by breaking it down into its constituent parts. The portions that you see in gray are basically called construction lines, which is something that you can draw in a different color or use a lighter pencil so that you can make your markings before actually drawing the final one, the final car that you see it in yellow. And once again, you will notice all of the basic shapes that are basically being formed over here. If you want to draw it in greater detail, all you have to do is break even the small details into constituent parts. For example, maybe the bumper has a little curve. Maybe the door handle is a little rounded rectangle over here. Maybe there is a curve to the windows. All of those are things where you can also add circles and arcs and shapes to get small details right in your drawings as well. So, no matter how far and how detailed you go, it is possible to take any object, break it into constituent parts, and draw them. Every single object can be simplified. When it is simplified, it can be drawn. And all of your building blocks are again there, right there for you, which is your basic shapes and all of your 3D forms. In your tools, they're easy to use things that can help you communicate effortlessly. Think of how you can use your basic shapes and combine them into building blocks to draw all of the things that are around you.